I stopped setting a plate for my dad on Christmas morning when I was 10. My stepmom said he'd moved away to start over without distractions. I didn't get what that meant at the time. I thought maybe I was the distraction. I'm Emily Harrison, 25, and I live in Albuquerque now. I'm finishing up my master's in architecture. On paper, I look like someone who figured life out. But every version of success I've chased has always had this hole in the middle shaped like a man I used to call Dad. My mom died of cancer when I was 5. I barely remember her, just glimpses. Her red lipstick, the way she hummed while folding laundry. My dad, Mark, tried. I remember that much. He used to pack my lunch with little Post-its that said, "Shine bright, sunshine," and draw these goofy stars with sunglasses on them. He did my hair for kindergarten picture day and got the parts uneven, but he tried. Then came Joanne. He met her at work. She was efficient, polished, and everything our house wasn't. Within 6 months, she moved in. A year later, they were married. I was 6 and still sucking my thumb at night. She said it made me look simple. Things changed fast. She reorganized everything, literally and emotionally. My room was repainted, my bedtime stories disappeared, and so did the silly lunch notes. "You're not a baby anymore," she said. "Time to grow up." Dad started missing stuff. Dance recitals, science fairs, the school carnival he used to help run. Joanne always had a reason. He had a migraine. He was working late. He didn't want to disappoint me by showing up halfway through. At 8, I believed her. At 10, I stopped asking. The last time I really saw my dad, really looked at him and thought he saw me back, I was 9. I'd just won an art contest. First place. I waited by the window for hours for him to come home. Joanne showed up alone and said he'd gone on a work trip. She handed me a card that said, "Congratulations, champ," in handwriting that didn't look like his. And then, he was just gone. No goodbye. No explanation. Just gone. Joanne said he moved out. Said he wanted to focus on his career in Santa Fe. Said he didn't want joint custody. Some men just aren't built for fatherhood. She told me one night when I cried myself sick in the bathroom, "It's not about you. He just needed freedom." So I believed her. I believed her for 15 years. Birthdays came and went with a check in the mail from the estate account. No calls, no letters. Joanne would roll her eyes and say, "At least he still sends something." I internalized it. All of it. I figured I was hard to love. Too needy. Too much. Until last Thursday. I got home from class, bone-tired from pulling 3 all-nighters for final critiques. There was a thin envelope in my mailbox. No return address. I almost tossed it, thinking it was junk. Inside was a postcard. It was a picture of a building I'd drawn during my first year of architecture school, one I'd forgotten about. It was never published anywhere. The original was still tucked inside my old sketchbook in storage. I flipped it over. Just one sentence in shaky handwriting. "It's still on my fridge. I'm proud of you." I sat on the floor in the hallway for what felt like an hour, that postcard in my hand, my keys still dangling from the doorknob. I hadn't seen that building in years. How the hell did anyone know I drew it? And then it hit me. He'd seen it. Somehow, my father had seen it, which meant he'd been watching. Quietly, closely, probably longer than I realized. Which meant everything Joanne told me might have been a lie. And if that was a lie, what else was? That night, I found a bottle of wine I'd been saving and drank half of it straight from the bottle. I opened the shoebox where I keep old keepsakes, report cards, birthday cards, photos, and I looked for any clue, anything I might have missed. And buried under a stack of 3rd grade spelling bee ribbons, I found something. An envelope. Unopened. Yellowed at the edges. Addressed to me, but never given. Postmarked. April 2009. From Mark Harrison, my dad. And that was just the beginning. The envelope was so old it cracked at the edges when I touched it. April 2009. I was 9. That was the year he stopped coming home. The handwriting on the front said Emily in blocky, slightly crooked letters. My name. Not M, not Sunshine like he used to call me. Just Emily. I don't remember putting that letter in the box. I don't remember ever receiving it. But my name was on it, and it had a real stamp, postmarked and all. Which meant someone, probably Joanne, had grabbed it out of the mailbox and never gave it to me. I just sat there for a while, staring at it, heart pounding in my ears. Then I opened it. It wasn't long. Just a folded sheet of lined paper, like from a yellow legal pad. The ink was slightly smudged. Hi, Bug. I hope you're still drawing. I still have the picture you gave me of the house with the rainbow roof. It's taped to my bathroom mirror. Every morning it reminds me that I have a reason to keep trying. I know this is hard. I know I'm not there the way I should be. But I love you. I love you with everything I have. I hope you still remember that. Dad. I read it 3 times, trying to process what it meant. He had written to me. He'd tried. And if there was one letter, maybe there were more. So I did something I hadn't done since high school. I called my grandma, my dad's mom. She hadn't seen me since my 12th birthday. Joanne had always referred to her as that woman and told me she didn't want anything to do with us after the divorce. I was too young to understand how carefully those stories had been curated. When I called, her voice cracked. Emily? Hi, Grandma. She cried, not like teary sniffle cried. Full-on sobbed. After a few minutes of back and forth, I asked her the question that had been clawing at my throat. Did my dad really walk away from me? Silence. Then, oh, baby. He never walked away. He was pushed out. That sentence broke something in me. Over the next hour, she told me everything. How my dad had tried for 3 years to get partial custody. That Joanne blocked every attempt. That he'd shown up to my school plays, soccer games, even my 5th grade graduation, always standing in the back, hoping I'd notice him. And then she said the thing that gutted me. I have boxes of letters he wrote to you. Every birthday, every Christmas, every school year. He sent them here after Joanne started returning them unopened. I asked if I could see them. She said, "Come tomorrow. I'll have them ready." The next morning, I drove to her house. I don't even remember the drive, just that my hands wouldn't stop shaking on the steering wheel. She met me at the door like no time had passed, and for a second, I saw the version of my life that could have been if someone hadn't stolen it. The letters were real. Dozens of them, tied in a ribbon. He'd written to me every single year. There was even a letter from when I turned 13 saying he tried to call, but Joanne told him I didn't want to speak to him anymore. That was the year I started therapy for abandonment issues. Reading those letters was like reliving my childhood in a different universe, one where I was loved, wanted, missed. But the worst part? The letter from my 10th birthday. It included a photo of me on stage at my school's holiday show. I was singing in a red sweater, holding a paper snowflake. The photo had been taken from the back of the auditorium. He was there, and I hadn't seen him, because Joanne told me he didn't care enough to come. I started to cry, not the soft, cinematic kind. I mean full-body sobs, choking on my own breath while my grandma held me like I was 5 again. That night, I went home, pulled out my old school memory boxes, and found something I'd completely forgotten. My 4th grade art project. It was a diorama of a perfect home. 3 people inside, me, Joanne, and a dog. My dad wasn't in it, because by then I'd stopped believing he belonged. But he did. He always did. And Joanne had erased him on purpose. That was the moment I stopped crying. That was the moment I realized I hadn't been abandoned. I'd been stolen. I wasn't supposed to find it. But she left her email open. Joanne never lets her guard down. She's the kind of woman who triple-checks locks and wipes her phone screen after every use. But she left the laptop on the counter, logged in, coffee still steaming beside it. I didn't go looking for dirt. I was there dropping off a sweater she left in my car after brunch, her sudden push to rebuild things after I started asking too many questions. But then I saw the subject line. You did the right thing. My chest went tight. I don't know why I clicked it. Curiosity? Anger? God knows. The email thread was between Joanne and her college roommate, Pam. I'd met Pam once at a dinner years ago. She gave me a weird smile and never made eye contact. Now I know why. Joanne had written, "It was easier this way. Emily needed stability. Mark couldn't give me what I needed." I made the call. He backed off. My whole body went cold. I read it again. I made the call. He backed off. Pam had replied, "He didn't fight you?" Joanne, "He tried. But when I reminded him what he'd lose, he stopped." The rest of the thread was a blur of wine club plans and real estate gossip. But that one line, "what he'd lose," kept echoing in my head like a scream underwater. I slammed the laptop shut. My hands were shaking. My ears rang. I left the house without saying a word. That night, I couldn't sleep. I just laid there staring at the ceiling, thinking about every birthday he missed, every award ceremony I sat through alone. Every time I told myself, he just didn't care. But what if that wasn't the truth? What if he wanted to be there and she made sure he couldn't? The next morning, I called Grandma again. I asked, "Did he have another kid?" She hesitated. Then, "Emily, yes. Your half-brother, Caleb. He's 15. My jaw dropped. "And did Joanne raise him?" Another pause. Number Mark got full custody after the divorce. She didn't want him. That was it. That was the piece I hadn't known I was missing. Joanne used me to leverage custody. She told my dad that if he didn't walk away from me, she'd fight him for Caleb, who was only a baby back then. She forced him into an impossible choice: lose his daughter or lose his son. He picked the one who couldn't be taken away by lies and manipulation. And now I was the collateral damage. My stomach turned. I felt like I was going to be sick. This wasn't just about me being cut off. It was about being weaponized. I spent years thinking my dad abandoned me because I wasn't enough. But it wasn't about me at all. It was about power, control. And Joanne played all of us like chess pieces. I didn't know what to do or feel. I wasn't angry. I was shattered. So I did the only thing I could think of. I Googled Caleb. He's in high school, plays guitar, on the swim team, smiles like someone who's always had someone cheering from the bleachers. I stared at a video of him performing at a school talent show. My dad was in the audience, clapping offbeat with this proud, goofy smile. He'd been there for Caleb, all along. And I felt jealous. Not of Caleb, but of a version of me that could have existed. I should have been in the row behind them, teasing Dad for clapping too loud. I should have known I had a brother. We should have grown up together, fighting over cereal and who got the front seat. Instead, we were strangers. My whole childhood had been a lie orchestrated by someone who was supposed to protect me. And I guess here's where I admit something that makes me feel pathetic. Even after everything, part of me still wanted to talk to her. Not to scream or rage or demand an apology. Just to ask, why? Why steal years I can never get back? Why make me believe I was unlovable? And if you've ever had someone rewrite your life like that, replace love with silence and call it stability. I want you to know. You're not crazy, you're not broken, and you're not alone. But damn, I wish I'd never opened that laptop. I thought I'd be calm when I saw him again. I wasn't. I parked across the street and sat there for 10 full minutes, hands clenched around the steering wheel. His house looked normal, ordinary even. A red mailbox, wind chimes by the porch, potted basil wilting in the sun. It was the life he built without me. I almost turned around. I almost convinced myself this was a bad idea. But then I saw the bracelet, hanging from the rearview mirror of his truck. Plastic beads, pink and purple. The one I made him at summer camp when I was 7. I was inside that house before I realized my feet had moved. He opened the door like he'd been waiting. "Emily," he said, just my name. Nothing else. But his voice cracked halfway through it, and I swear it echoed in places inside me I'd forgotten existed. He looked older, obviously. Grayer, slower, but it was still him. Same deep-set eyes. Same stupid wristwatch he used to tap twice before starting the car, like it was a launch countdown. He didn't hug me. I didn't offer. We just stood there for a moment like people in the middle of a collapsed bridge. "Can I explain?" he asked softly. "I'm not here for an apology," I said. "I want the truth. All of it." So he gave it to me. He told me about the custody battle, how Joanne threatened to drag Caleb through the mud if he didn't sign over rights to me, how his lawyer said it wasn't worth it. No judge would side with the father when the mother had no official complaints. How he stood in the back of my middle school talent show and cried in his car afterward because I didn't even glance his way. "I thought maybe if I backed off, you'd grow up happy," he said. "Even if it meant you'd hate me." I didn't realize I was crying until I tasted salt. We talked for hours. I learned he kept every photo he could find of me. Class pictures scanned from school websites, yearbook clippings someone mailed him anonymously, even a blurry screenshot of a high school newspaper article I was in. He'd been there, quietly, consistently, in the shadows but never gone. I asked about Caleb. "He's amazing," Dad said, his eyes lighting up. "Funny, smart. He asks about you sometimes." I stiffened. "He knows about me?" Dad paused. "I never lied to him. I told him I had a daughter, that it's complicated." Complicated. That word again. Code for every adult who ever took a shortcut through my life. But I didn't argue. I couldn't. Not yet. Before I left, I asked one final thing. "If Joanne hadn't threatened you, would you have fought harder?" He didn't hesitate. "I would have torn down the damn courthouse." That night, I sat in my car outside his house for another hour. And that's when it happened. That's when I saw her, Joanne, pulling into the driveway. In his driveway. Not visiting. Not dropping something off. She had a key. She opened his front door, walked in, like she belonged. I thought I was going to throw up. I stared, frozen. I called Grandma. "Did you know they still talk?" She went quiet, then sighed. "Oh, sweetheart." "What?" "They never stopped. He said it was over, that they were just trying to co-parent. But they've been connected, in some way, this whole time." Everything stopped spinning. Every piece I thought I'd picked up shattered again. She didn't just erase me. She's still in his life. After everything. The lies, the manipulation, the stolen years. He let her back in. And suddenly, I didn't know who the villain was anymore. I drove home in silence. Didn't answer his texts. And I don't know what hurts worse. That she kept him from me. Or that he let her stay. If you've ever reopened a door to someone who destroyed you and called it maturity or peace, I hope you see this, because some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some need to burn. And maybe, for the first time, I'm the one holding the match. I didn't respond to him for 2 weeks. No texts. No calls. Just silence. I needed space to think. Not just about him, about me. About everything I'd swallowed to protect other people's comfort. And in that silence, I realized something. Closure doesn't come from apologies. It comes from action. So I booked the trip. Seattle. The city he once promised to take me to when I was a kid. I made all the arrangements myself. Picked the hotel, reserved the flights, paid for both tickets. Then I sent him one text. "The plane leaves Friday at 7:40 a.m. I'll be at gate 12. If you're serious about building something real, you'll be there. If not, I'll still go, but alone." He showed up. No grand gestures, no speech. Just him, a duffel bag, and the bracelet still hanging off his wrist. The trip was surreal. We visited the aquarium, walked through Pike Place Market, shared silence and small talk over overpriced seafood. It was awkward, healing, raw, human. On the second night, I gave him a gift, a small photo album. Inside were copies of the letters he wrote me, the ones Joanne stole, the ones that never reached me. At the back, I left a blank page. I figured we could start filling the rest together, I said. He didn't cry, but he held that album like it weighed 50 pounds. He whispered, "Thank you." And I meant it when I nodded. But then came the moment I didn't see coming. We were walking near the waterfront when my phone buzzed. It was Caleb, not my dad. Caleb. He'd found me through a tagged photo Dad had posted. Just said, "Hey, I think I'm your brother. Want to talk?" My knees buckled. I sat on a bench and just stared at the screen. Dad looked over. I showed him. He smiled, but it was a nervous smile. "I didn't tell him about this trip," he admitted. "I didn't think it was time." That's when I understood. He was still protecting her, still letting Joanne shape what Caleb knew, still dancing around the truth because he didn't want to create drama. And something in me broke all over again. I stood up. "I can't do this if you're still lying to him," I said. "If you want a relationship with me, then you don't get to keep feeding him a sanitized version of the past." He went quiet. I walked away. Didn't run, didn't cry. Just walked, knowing that this wasn't about anger anymore. It was about respect. And I was finally giving it to myself. 3 weeks later, I met Caleb at a bookstore cafe halfway between our cities. He looks like our dad, talks fast when he's nervous. And when I told him everything, every bit of it, he didn't flinch. He just sat there, quiet, then said, "So, she did that to you. And Dad let her." I nodded. He nodded back. And that was enough. We've been texting every week since. It's not perfect, but it's honest. As for Joanne, she knows I talked. She called once. Left a voicemail full of half-threats and guilt. I saved it. Didn't respond. And then I sent copies of every letter, every court transcript, every photo to Caleb, labeled, "In case anyone tries to rewrite history again." That was the day I reclaimed my story. Not out of spite, but out of truth. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Silence protects the wrong people. Telling the truth protects the next you. Lesson I learned? Sometimes closure isn't peaceful. Sometimes it looks like standing your ground and walking away with your head held high. If this hit close to home, if you've ever had to rebuild your own truth from the ashes someone else left behind, drop a comment. And if you're still finding your voice, you're not alone. Stick around. There's power in telling the hard stories out loud.